We are working on the Minesweeper project from the Why Byte Python curriculum. We are now at a point where the list field contains all the information about our mine. I can see that here when I, for example, run display field. Notice it tells me where the mines are. It also tells us, what is the neighborhood. So, for example, if there's no mine near in the neighbor, I get a 0, otherwise 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the field list is now completely ready. Now it's time for us to move towards the user interaction, which means how does the game proceed from the user's perspective. Now recall that we are building this in tkinter, and all of this are basically buttons, like a tkinter widget, which means that the code from now on is going to be triggered by the player, or say the user, clicking one of these buttons. Now what that means from a coding point of view is that I will need to write a function which will run when this button is clicked. And you can imagine that there are so many buttons. In this case, let's say 81 buttons. All of these are going to run the same code, which means we will have to somehow use the lambda statement for this purpose, just like we did in the calculator. Because we would want to pass an argument to this function. So let's see how this happens. In this video, we will create let's say a template function called ClickOn, which is the function that will run when any of these buttons is clicked. So let's see how that sort of works out. So what I'll do is that I will get into my, let's say, the loop where I created these buttons, appended them to this list called, let's say, buttons. Now, remember, I need to assign a command for each of these, let's say, for each of these buttons. And the way I would do that is I just go and say, well, look, command is equal to lambda. Now I need a lambda because remember I would need to pass to this function the row and column index of the button that's being clicked. And in order for me to do so, the lambda, which is an anonymous function with single statement, becomes the way to move forward. So I just go and say R is equal to KK. Remember KK is the row index. C is equal to say JJ. Then I have a colon and I go and say click on. So click on, and I pass on to this, let's say, R and C. So this is like a way to pass an argument into a function using, let's say, these button clicks. But obviously I must go and define this click on. In fact, this click on is going to be an important function moving forward. So I just go and say, look, let me define, let's say, click on, which takes two arguments, let's say R and C. And for now, let's just print this R and C so that we get a sense of what's going on here. And I can just, let's say, let it be. So that should be fine. Now, when we run this, if I were to click on, let's say, any of the buttons, so I click on this, notice I get a 0, 0. I click on this, I get an 8, 8. I click on this, I get 4, 5. I click on this, I get 0, 8. You notice that whenever I'm clicking on a button, the R and C correspond to the row index and the column index of that button. Now, again, this is absolutely no surprise because this is exactly what we are doing through this lambda statement. We are just saying, okay, look, assign R to, let's say, KK, which is the row index, assign C to this JJ. And basically, this lambda is like saying, okay, go and call ClickOn with this R and this C. We have seen this before, like I said, in the calculator project and so on. Here we are calling lambda inside a for loop, but the idea is exactly the same. So basically this function gets called as we saw with the row and column index. Now with this information available, in fact, we will now have an idea of what is the button that has been clicked, because remember, this R and C also corresponds to the field list. So if I were to, let's say, so I run this again, let's say, and say display field, notice that whatever R and C I'm clicking, there is a corresponding value in the field list, which tells me if it's a mine, if it's a square with, let's say, non-zero neighbors, or it's a square with 0 neighbors. So using a combination of, let's say, this R and C and the field, in fact, we know what button has been clicked, and subsequently we can take actions according to that button. And that's what we are going to do build as we move further. I hope you found this interesting. Our website www.whybyte.in has a lot of material for you to learn Python. We always learn by building activities in a systematic step-by-step manner, analyzing every step of the code and trying to see how it's all working. Look at our website for more details. Take care. Enjoy programming. Thank you so much.